Now let's talk dessert. Today I'm going to be making peachy oatmeal bars. This is a delicious, delicious dessert. Easy, so easy, very simple to make. As a matter of fact, my 6-year-old granddaughter actually helps me make this quite often. It's my husband's favorite dessert, so let's get started. Okay, first thing I need, first ingredient, is about 1.5 cups of flour. I've been making this for a while. I've tweaked it a few times over just to get it just right. I've added, I've subtracted. Okay, we're gonna have about a cup of oatmeal. Now, I use old-fashioned oats just because that's what I always use. I don't usually have quick oats on hand, and I'm all set with using old-fashioned oats. But if you want to use quick oats, feel free to use quick oats. That'll work as well. Okay, I'm also going to be using 1/2 cup of brown sugar. You just want to pack that in there nicely. Add that to your bowl. And okay, I'm also going to add 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. I don't know if you noticed or not, this is a little flip top. It's from a Parmesan cheese container, and I love it. You can tell I use it a lot. I like it because you've got the shaker part, and you've got the part where you can spoon out, and it's just handy. So I use them for my baking soda, I use them for my cinnamon. It's great, they fit right on these mason jars. I mean, you could use the bigger jar too if you wanted to put more in the containers, but I find these are perfect for my spices. So, okay, so I want to add, before I add my flavoring, I'm going to just kind of mix this around. Just want to mix it up a little bit. Combine all the dry, let's see here, and then I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons of almond extract. My husband loves almond extract. This might not be exactly 2 teaspoons. Sometimes I think almond can be a little bit overpowering, so I try not to add too much. But it does give it a really nice flavor. Oh, I can smell it. It smells so good. I love almond. Okay, so now that I've got that all mixed in, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of butter, which is 1 stick of butter. It's melted, and 3 tablespoons also. So I put half a cup plus 3 tablespoons. Get that all out of there. I'm going to mix this all up. I've tweaked the butter a few times because I used to add more, and it just seemed like I always had, you know, I'd added a little bit at a time, and it seemed like I always had butter left over. So I kind of cut back a little bit and cut back a little bit, and I think this is the perfect amount. So you just want 1 stick plus 3 tablespoons. Melt that, and it just works perfectly. Okay, so that is the crust. Wasn't that easy? I mean, just quick and easy. Okay, so I have a cast iron pan. You can use an 8x8 baking dish, metal or glass, whichever you choose. I like to use the cast iron because I am cooking this in my cook stove. So I just want to put a little bit of the mixture out here, just enough to put on the bottom. You pack it in nicely. I want to save some for the top. So I want to pack this around, and I want to, this is lightly greased too. I probably don't need to grease it, but I do. I just always have, just in case, you know, you don't want any of your crumbles sticking. So I like to give it a little bit of a light butter around. And to do that, actually, what I use is, once I put my butter in my dish to be melted, I take the wrapping from the butter, and I mean, it's wax paper. I use that to just kind of go around my pan and butter it nicely, and that works really great. You can keep those wrappers in a Ziploc, keep them right in your refrigerator, and use them anytime too. Okay, so once I've got that in there, I've kind of gone up a little bit on the edges a little bit, just so that if my jam travels, it's not going to travel out. Okay, so this is homemade peach jam that I made last year. You can use any jam you want to use. You could use pie filling if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be homemade. I use homemade just because it's what I have. You can, a lot of the time I use strawberry rhubarb jam. That's probably my kids' favorite. It's the strawberry rhubarb. Definitely my grandkids' favorite. If you've never had it, you're missing out. Okay, so this is just a little pint jar, so it's about a cup. It's not completely full. And okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. I mean, this is really quite subjective to how much you want in here too. You can make a very thin layer, you can make a thicker layer. It's totally up to you. It's customizable, I should say. Oh, this smells so good. I can smell the almond. I can smell the peach jam. Do you have a favorite dessert? I don't know if I have a favorite dessert, but this is definitely my husband's favorite. Okay, I added almost the entire second one, but I think this is full enough. So, with the rest of the crust, I am just going to sprinkle it in. Get it lightly covered. I don't feel like I have to cover the entire thing. I kind of like it to peek through a little bit. I think it looks really good, but you know, it's totally up to you. If you want to cover it, that's fine. And you can always, if you have extra crust left over, or if you, you know, because sometimes I make smaller ones, and actually I might do that with that leftover jam. Make a little one. So I'll leave some of that crumble, but the crumble freezes really well if you don't use it all. You can throw it in a Ziploc and just toss it in your freezer and use it next time. Or for okay. So there it is. I'm going to top it off. I'm going to add a little bit of coconut. This step is totally optional. My husband kind of likes it. This is unsweetened coconut, by the way. And I don't add a lot. Just a little bit. It gets nicely toasted on the top when it's cooking, so that's always nice. There we go. Now let's get it in the oven. Okay, so I'm going to sit here for a little bit and we'll just have a little chit chat. I wrote down some information. I didn't say a couple of things when I was mixing the squares, so I wanted to cover that with you. First off, I want to say that you bake them at 350 degrees. I typically, in my normal oven, bake them for about 28 minutes. It varies, every oven is so different, so you want to just keep your eye on it. I'd start at 25 minutes and then work my way up. In the cook stove, it's not going to take any time at all, because typically, like I said, I cook them at 350 and my cook stove is at about 375 right now, so it's a little bit warmer. So, and about halfway through I turn the pan, just because in a cook stove you have your heat on one side, your oven on the other, so whatever's on the side of the heat is going to get cooked a lot faster. So I've learned to rotate and keep it as far over to the right as possible. It takes a lot of learning the technique to cooking on a cook stove, but I'm telling you, I love it. I love it. I love it. We cooked our dinner on it last night. My husband loves it, so that's really nice. Okay, so I want to say I used unsalted butter. No, I used salted butter in this recipe, so I did not add salt. If you are using unsalted butter, you want to add about 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the recipe. Okay, and also you can add vanilla instead of almond flavoring. You can omit the flavoring altogether if you want to. I would use the same amount, about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. It's not as strong as the almond. The almond is I find a bit stronger flavoring, so I probably added maybe 1.5 teaspoons. Sometimes I'll add 2. I like the almond flavoring, but I've made it before and I've had people comment, oh, the almond might be a little bit strong, so I kind of cut back on it if it's for anybody else. So my husband likes it too, so I don't mind adding it. Okay, and also my rolling cloth, the cloth that's on my breadboard, well, that is a Foley Pastry cloth, and it's the original antique. I had a friend give that to me and I love it. She knew how much I love antiques. I love anything done the old way. So she knew I love that, and I'm so glad that she gave that to me. And so I use it. I use it every time I bake. It's always on my breadboard. I love it. There is an extra piece that goes to it. I didn't have it on when I was making my bread. I should have had it on because you saw the cloth moving. Yeah, I should have had that piece on there and I didn't, and I need to put it back on. But I'll tell you, I washed it and I put it on the frame after I wash it, and I let it dry on the frame because I don't want it shrinking. So let me show you, well, let me just say first, I want to show it to you. But before I show it to you, I've looked up information about this and I can't find really anything on it. I don't know, maybe I'm not looking it up the right way. I know there's a way you can look things up and some people find things. Maybe it's just not out there. I don't know. But it is still available. You can get one on eBay. They're about $70. But I did find, when I researched them, I did find that they carry them at Walmart. I mean, it's not going to be the old one, and I'm not sure if it's going to be made the same, but they do have them at Walmart, and they're about $20. They also have them at Lehman's. Lehman's is an online store. Here goes my timer. I've got to check those squares in the oven. But it's about $13, $14 at Lehman's, so that's probably going to be your cheapest bet. If you want the original, you pay the $70. Let me check those, and then I want to show you the cloth. So hold on just a second. You see it bubbling on this side. This is the side that was closest to the stove when I first put it in, and I rotated it about halfway through. So I really think that it can do a little bit more cooking on that side. So I'm going to put it back in. And I did end up doing a smaller one with a little bit of the leftover jam and crumble that I had. So I have a little tiny one here. That's gonna go to my father-in-law. But it's not quite browned enough. So I'm gonna stick that back in and let it go a little longer. Okay, here is the pastry frame. Yes, I was calling it a pastry cloth. It is a cloth, but it's called the Foley Pastry frame. I tried to find a date on here, but I can't really find a date. There's some numbers, but they're so faded I can't see what they are. But this is kind of almost like a canvasy fabric, but yet it's almost waxy at the same time. And you can see I do have it on the frame because I usually hand wash it after I've used it and put it right on the frame to dry so it doesn't shrink. But there's a wood strip that goes through a sleeve on the top and another wood strip that goes through the sleeve on the bottom. And then there's this bracket that just connects onto the wooden piece, the top and the bottom on each side, and that just holds it straight. You can see how taut that it is. And in the center it has your 8-inch and 9-inch pie circle, so that when you're rolling out your pie crust you have an idea of how big the 8-inch is or the 9-inch. And down here it has in inches, it goes up to 18 or 19 inches, I think. It's kind of hard to see. There we go. It's really neat. This is just the neatest thing. And these edges, you can see on this side, it comes down on the edge on both this side. It doesn't do it on this side. And the reason for that, let me show you. Okay, so if I had, this is shading it quite a bit. It's the sun is starting to go down and I don't have much light on this side of the house. So if you were rolling out your pie crust, you would be pushing in this direction. And what this does is this, see how that holds? It's not going to move. That's why I should have had it when I was doing my bread, because when I'm kneading and it's pushing, see how it's not moving? That's what that does. It prevents it. And it's actually made for this. This is an old Hoosier, and it was designed to fit on your Hoosier because most people would use the Hoosier surface to roll out their pie crust or pastry dough, and you know, you roll it out and the cloth doesn't move. And your mess is contained right to this cloth, so you unhook it from the frame and clean it, and it's just the neatest thing. Timer went off again, so let's look and see. Oh, yummy. Does that look delicious? It's bubbling on all the sides here. See what this little guy is doing. Oh yes, he's bubbling nicely too. I'm gonna call that one done and call this one done as well. I don't want the bottom to get too dark. So what do you think? Doesn't that look great? This is so good. Okay, so that is out of the oven. It looks delicious, and my husband will be very happy that I made that today. I'm sure he's going to dig out the vanilla ice cream and put that on top because it is so good. And warmed, yeah, the ice cream just melts all over it, and it's just one of those added touches that you just have to have. Thank you for joining me today here at Movavi's Pantry.